West started the war and we used force in order to stop it.
If there was any single American who deserves scorn and yes, blame for the invasion of Ukraine, it would be Joe Biden.
The Ukrainian people have become hostages of their Western masters.
Ukraine is not a democracy. It's a client state of the Biden administration.
The US were training on the future theater of military actions by owning biological laboratories in Ukraine.
Military biological programs are under development in Ukraine, financed by the US Defense Ministry.
Western countries were setting military bases on our border.
The Russians don't want American missiles on their border. They don't want a hostile government next door.
NATO took specific actions, expansions to our borders.
Getting Ukraine to join NATO was the key to inciting war with Russia.
The elites of the West are not hiding their goals. They are trying to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia.
The Biden administration wanted all along a regime change war against Russia.
The initiators of the sanctions are punishing themselves.
So it's not Vladimir Putin who's getting punished, it's American citizens. It's you.
The West provoked the growth of prices in their own countries, collapse of energy sector.
Gas prices are already the highest they have ever been in history. So the price of natural gas and the price of electricity and food and everything else you buy. I think we should probably take the side of Russia if we have to choose between Russia and Ukraine. That is my view. We're on Putin's side.
He really is. He really is, you guys. And look, it is fine to make these points as an individual, as like someone who is analyzing the situation. It is very different to use almost the exact same language as the Russian government uses on your primetime Fox News cable show that is one of the most watched in the nation. And that is what is directly being fed into the American people every single night. He's parroting, Biden started it. It was the NATO expansion. Exactly. It was the biological weapons. The American citizens are the ones who have been punished, right? Now, to be honest with you, I think there's a shred of reality in the ways that how could the Biden administration, how could the Trump administration, how could the Obama administration have taken steps to de-escalate any kind of hostilities with Russia to get to the point where we wouldn't have necessarily this invasion? I don't know. Again, Russia invaded Ukraine, y'all. Russia invaded Crimea first in 2014. So but it's fine to ask questions. It's very different to literally parrot what Putin is saying. And it sends chills down my spine because I'm like, okay, well, there's gotta be some money on the table here.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out too, because this is the thing, and it's been across the board. I mean, it's not just Tucker Carlson. We saw it from the beginning, as these talking points were hitting. And it's the sad part. What I think, this is at least my speculation, it's still strictly based off of normal American presidential politics. So once Donald Trump was saying, "You guys know, if I was still in office, this stuff would have never happened," and then they have to now parrot that and say that because all they're worried about is then trying to reinsert their folks back into office, so they can continue to carry out whatever policies that strip certain Americans of their rights, but then also help benefit other certain Americans financially over others and put this into place in that law. And they don't go even further than that. So even when it comes to an international conflict, who cares about understanding it? Who cares about actually telling the truth about how it started? All we care about is, since Trump is not in office anymore, here's an opportunity. This is not a well thought out intellectual argument. This is an opportunity for me to use this to then push my same home American political points to my audience so they can maybe vote a certain way. It starts and ends there, and it's the saddest part about this. And for folks who do understand it and then try and tell you the differences and the problems and the reasons behind the maybe America's part in this to a degree, then they go, "Oh my God, I don't understand that stuff," or they just don't listen to it because we're too busy then talking about, well, if Trump was in office, Putin would be shaking his boots. What kind of analysis is that? Who knows that? Did you interview Vladimir and be like, and Vladimir told me, and my name is Joe Schmo in Alabama, that he would be totally scared if Trump was still in office. He never would have done this. Probably wouldn't have, because he wouldn't want to disrupt his presidency and have all these arguments happening while he's there because he was his parrot. We saw it happen in Helsinki.
You're totally right. Oh my God, that I can't. I mean, another moment that's stuck in my brain is that Helsinki meeting. Yeah, he would have behaved very differently had Trump been president. He would have just annexed all of Ukraine, and you wouldn't have done F all. And it reminds me, in terms of scoring political points, it reminds me under Obama when he did sign the Iran deal, right? What happened? Extremists in both Iran and the right here, Tom Cotton, freaked out, hated it, hated Obama for doing any kind of diplomacy with Iran, and only used it to score political points. No thought to, hey, we're de-escalating a situation, we're helping, disarm Iran, nuclear Iran, right? Or nuclearizing Iran. And then what they do, they invite Benjamin Netanyahu, the then prime minister and prime minister of Israel, to come and speak to Congress, basically like dancing on Obama's stage, right? Being like, oh, and they did it all for political points, right? So again, the right dabbles in what I would say like low-key traitorism in order to score points against their political opponents, and also, yes, with no eye to actually what's going on the ground. Now, in news from worst man you know makes good point, Senator Lindsey Graham is hitting back against people like Tucker Carlson, like Marjorie Greene, like Matt Gaetz, and so many other Republicans who have absolutely given a pass to Russia for their aggression in Ukraine. And he's tweeted a thread that makes kind of some sense. He says, to those who believe that Russia's unprovoked and barbaric invasion of Ukraine is not a priority for the United States, you are missing a lot. He goes on to explain, I don't know if we have any of the other tweets, but he goes on to explain how this started. He even brings the receipts. He's like, look, in '94, in exchange for for Russia's recognition of Ukraine's sovereignty, meaning we're not going to invade you, they willingly gave up their nuclear weapons. Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons, which I think is a big, bold, and important move, right? And then Russia was like, tight, you don't have nuclear weapons, and we can invade. I mean, granted, it was 10 years later they invaded the Crimea, so. It is interesting to see this rift in some of, the on the right in terms of people who believe that Russia is actually a threat and those who do not. And then of course the question is like, well, Lindsey Graham's also a total hawk. So he probably wants even more money for the Pentagon budget. He's not saying this because he's a good guy. He's being honest about this one particular conflict. But it doesn't mean he's not like a total hawk who's gonna send us into even more endless war.
And isn't that sad? That we still have that. And I was talking about the presidential politics. And then as you point out, there's Lindsey Graham with his military politics, or the money going to the military politics, or the fact he likes seeing war, or at least some kind of supremacy as far as conflicts from America over other countries. Whatever the motivations are, people have their own small side notes and reasons why they're doing it. And as we discover them, then that gives you a better approach to seeing why people are saying what it is that they're saying, even if, as you point out, it appears to be right in this particular situation, right? This particular sentence in a few tweets that he tossed out.
Totally, it's what we do with that information that really matters.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.